So chromatics of the major scale, what does it mean? Well, in relation to the major scale, it means the 5 notes which sit outside of the scale. And in today's lesson, I want to show you how to practice them and how you can use them to bring tension and movement into your improvising. To easily see the chromatics of the major scale, I think it's best to play it on one string. So if we play a C scale on the B string, we'd have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And the chromatics simply sit between those notes. And before we get into the chromatics, just a reminder of something from a couple lessons ago, I like to then divide those notes up into 2 camps, primary and secondary, with primary being 1, 3, 5, 1 again, C, E, G, and then the secondaries being D, F, A, B. We then have the chromatics. If we just filled the gaps between those notes, we'd have this. So we've got C, and then when we go up, I think in sharp, C, C sharp, then D sharp, change back to finger 1, E, F, F sharp, there's another chromatic, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, back to C. Fingering wise for that, I'm using all 4 fingers up to D sharp, then switch back to finger 1, so slide it up, then do 4 notes. Then swap again back to finger 1 for G sharp, then double little finger at the top. Backwards, I like to think in flats, so C, B, B flat, A, change back to little finger, A flat, G, G flat, F, change to little finger again, E, E flat, D, D flat, then finger 1 goes down to the last note. So those are the chromatics, or the chromatic scale if you like. It's filling the gaps between those major scale notes. You can also do it going across the guitar, you know. By playing it on one string, you can visually see then, can't you, how the gaps get filled out. Whereas if we put it in a scale position, it's still there, but it's not as easy to see or visualize. So like this. Here's the C scale here with the chromatics. So essentially you're practicing the chromatic scale, obviously, but it's sort of keeping that C scale in mind as we're going to illustrate now. So I have a C chord sustained courtesy of the freeze, and now let's try and apply some of this. So we've got our scale, of which we have the primary notes in, C, E, G. We've also got the secondary notes, D, F, A, B, and then we've got the chromatics, C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp. They sound horrible against that. So how are we going to make that work? Well, first off, the primary note's obviously most important. And one thing you can start to do is just fill the gaps between the primary notes. So instead of going straight from C to E or even C, D, E, fill the chromatic gaps. So go, which is C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, and back down. Fill the gap between E and the G, to the 2 primary notes. There's one chromatic note there because we're going E, F, F sharp, G. You can hear this is in many ideas. So those chromatic notes work there because of the primary notes, I think. And then we can do stuff like, you know, approach the primary notes from beneath. And sometimes this will be a chromatic, sometimes it will be a secondary note. So we could go C, approach it from beneath with a B, which is a scale note. Approach the E from a semitone beneath, that's a D sharp or an E flat into an E. Approach the G, the other primary note, from beneath. So this becomes, when you approach each one from a semitone beneath, which is either with a secondary note or a chromatic note. Django Reinhardt used that idea a lot. You don't have to do it to every note as well. You know, there you go, F sharp, G, E, C. Bring the D in there. There you go. Like that. So D sharp to E, up to G, down to C, and then F sharp into G. You can hear there we've got the the strong notes. Those primary notes sound really prominent, but the chromatic notes just add interest and that sort of jazzy character. So you can fill the gaps between the notes like we did a minute ago. You can approach the primary notes from beneath. I also think it's helpful just to kind of fill the gaps between secondary and primary notes. So either between the C and D, so the root and the second, so like that, and down. Here's a line with it going out. Here's it going down. Fill the gap between the D and the E. So that's D, D sharp, E. Between the F and the G. And what I really like is between the 6th and the 5th. So that's A flat or G sharp down to G. Really nice ideas. So I like the ones, between the C and the D with the C sharp in between. Another way. Between the E and the D with the D sharp or E flat in between. And then the one on between the A and the G, so you can put the A flat or G sharp. You can also get into ideas like enclosures. So like this is a C enclose. You can enclose it from a scale tone above, then a note beneath, which will either be a secondary note or a chromatic. So D, B, C. You could do that with the C sharp as well. Don't think it works as well. The E, we could go F and then E flat and then E. So you get the outside sound of secondary note, quite a clash. Chromatic, I can't finish on that minor third. Then up to the. Sort of combining a few of the ideas there. Say between the G, you could go A, scale note above, some chromatic note beneath, F sharp, G. That works really well. I hope you found this lesson useful, and the purpose of it has really been just to sort of get you thinking about how all these things interact. You could look at any jazz solo and say, oh yeah, they're just using a chromatic scale or whatever, but it's about careful usage of these things. Those primary notes are so important. The secondary notes bring in a bit of color, and then those chromatics bringing intention, also a feeling of falling or momentum, and they make the primary notes stand out, I suppose. These chromatic pitches are just intervals, other intervals that are outside of the scale. So, you've got the C sharp or D flat being, your minor second or flat 9. You've got the E flat being the minor third. You've got the F sharp being the sharp 4 or flat 5, sharp 11, whatever you want to think about it, and so on. So, one thing you can really start to simplify your approach to jazz on actually is, do you know what? If I'm playing over a chord, if I was playing over a C chord, those are the possibilities. Do you know what? The primary notes would change depending on whether you're playing over a minor bass chord or a dominant, for instance. But you would still be, just simplifying it down to the fact that it's about the sound of those 12 notes and how they all interact. And you think how complicated sometimes, looking at approaching playing jazz can be. But when it comes down to it, if it's a C chord, whatever sort of C chord, you put yourself on a C, those 12 pitches are certain sounds you can go for, and kind of working like this and starting to think like this and hear these possible ways to bring out use these pitches can really lead to creating your own ideas rather than always copying others. But I also think it really helps understand other people's lines and why they work like they do. If you'd like some more tips and help with practicing the major scale, trying to really get to grips with what's packed inside it, then check out my ebook on practicing the major scale. I'll put a link in the description. If you've got any questions or any comments, then do leave them below. Until next time, you take care.